appreciating your weather. Honestly, you're getting a huge round of applause. Loads of cheers here in the studio. I hope you appreciate it.
Oh, completely. I love it.
Yeah, that's the seal of approval from Margot. Thanks, Matt.
I think that was Margot saying hello, if I'm not much mistaken. We best explain what's going on. Hello, everyone.
Hello,
and we'll
hello,
introduce
hello,
you properly
hello.
in just a second. But this is baby Margot. Just 4 days old, her parents were given the news that she'd been born without eyes. This is caused by a rare condition that occurs when a baby's optic nerves don't develop in the womb.
So, to help Margot in life, Mum and Dad have enlisted the help of a habilitation specialist from the charity Guide Dogs to help with her development. Let's introduce them all. So we have Laura, Margot's mum. We have John, Margot's mum, and Dad, and the star of the show, which we've already established, lovely Margot as well. And with us is habilitation specialist, senior habilitation specialist with Guide Dogs, Kate Reid. Morning to you.
So, who's going to explain for us? Do you want to start us off, Laura? So, as soon as anyone sees Margot and they're hearing how happy she is now, can you just explain her condition? So, born without eyes. Do you want to just take us through that?
Yeah, of course. So her condition is called bilateral anophthalmia, which essentially means exactly that Margot was born without eyes, so without any eye globes.
So now, as we look at her now, you know, what's happening around where her eyes would normally have been?
So at the moment, Margot she's due her next surgery. She has surgery approximately every 3 months. And ordinarily, after that surgery, she has implants in her sockets, which stimulates the growth of her skull and which is preparing her eventually for prosthetic eyes. At the moment, she doesn't have those implants in, so she has a void in her sockets.
So when will she have the implants?
So she'll have implants at her next surgery, which will be probably in the next couple of weeks, but the actual prosthetics themselves, which will look like our eyes, will probably be around the age of 3 or 4.
Because I'm imagining that the prosthetics at the moment as well will help, because she's growing all the time, so it's about the structure of the face as well, isn't it? How is she with those procedures? How's she reacting?
She's a dream. In all she's just amazed us with her resilience. She'll go in, she'll have a procedure, she'll have her implants fitted, her eyelids are then stitched, permanently stitched shut. And she'll come home.
Is that to protect the...
Yes, it's to make sure that the implant stays in place.
John, don't think for a second you just get to sit there holding the baby. Literally, you don't get that. So explain this phrase to us. We will get to you in a second, I promise. Have I got that right? Habilitation.
Habilitation.
So can you explain what that is? What does that mean?
Yeah, so Margot obviously learns a lot different from the rest of us. She can't use sight as any kind of learning tool or as a cue to understand things that are around her. So things that you would just learn naturally, she has to be taught. So it can be the tiniest little thing like, I have a hand and it's connected to me. She can't see that, so she needs somebody who can teach her that.
You asked her for a high five earlier.
I asked her for a high five. She's good. Can you give me a high five, Margot? That all comes from habilitation.
But just explain that a little bit more as well, because I suppose we don't think, because the hand's there, it's at the end of your arm kind of thing. So, but she doesn't know what.
Yeah, the world around her is obviously a complete blank. So if she's sat on my knee, she doesn't really understand that there's anything else in existence other than my knee. She doesn't know if there's she doesn't know there's a floor. She doesn't know that there's other people. So the first thing was kind of getting her to understand herself and what she is and what she can do, and then slowly start to introduce the world around her.
Kate, morning to you. Sorry, we've spent a lot of time over there. You're a senior habilitation specialist with Guide Dogs.
I am,
and straight away people are thinking there's no dogs involved in this. Do you want to explain that for us? What is the role?
I'm not part of the dog team. I'm with our children and young people's team. So habilitation specialists work with children and young people with visual impairments to gain independence, really. So that can be anything from mobility and orientation, so movement, getting out and about, and the independent living skills. So if you need it to live, we tend to teach it.
Can we be clear, because people will see Guide Dogs and then we'll see see Margot, it's Margot's choice and family's choice if they want a guide dog. It's
Yes.
not
Yeah.
oh, because you don't have eyes.
No,
or
not
because
at all,
you are blind,
no.
you need a guide dog.
We definitely work person-centred, so if people would like a guide dog, they can come to us and have an assessment for that. But if they don't want a guide dog, they don't.
Tell us a bit, Kate, of what success you've had. How does it work in practice? I presume you're at the beginning of this process with Margot, but in other situations, how does it work?
I mean, Margot's at the very early stages, so we're doing a lot of body awareness and sort of early development skills for gross motor. But equally with our older students, that could be getting on buses, travelling independently, living independently, cooking, cleaning, all of those things that go with having a life and a job.
And it works, does it? I mean,
It does.
just works.
If people get the input correctly and they get the early input and early intervention, I think it's really effective.
Oh, why is Margot wearing glasses?
She's wearing glasses in that video because after her surgery, when she has her open stitches, they're there for protection.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, to stop her from pulling them.
That would have been confusing to someone.
Yeah.
How? I mean, this must have been a shock for you.
It was.
And imagine, wasn't Margot delivered by you?
Yes.
Well, I mean, you delivered her. You gave birth to her, obviously, but you helped. So you're getting over that, recovering from that, all that shock. How did you cope? How did you, what were you told? How much information were you given? How clear was it? How useful was it?
So she was 4 days old when she was actually diagnosed. Like you say, the birth was quite dramatic, unexpectedly taking place with John delivering her. So it was a good few hours after Margot had been born that really, as her mum, I had a proper look at her, and it was at that point something just didn't feel quite right. Her face was a little bit sunken, but we had this gap between that and the actual formal diagnosis, and it was a huge shock for us, wasn't it? And looking back now, I would probably describe it as a trauma. It sounds like an awful thing to say when you're sitting here with beautiful Margot, because she's anything but that. But at the time, the circumstances were very difficult, and we've got amazing family that just rallied around us and just got us through processing that information until we were at a point of sitting down saying, right, practically now, what do we need to do? What do we need to do as Margot's parents to help her to flourish?
I bet, John, you became an expert pretty quickly. And we talk to a lot of people who go through health crises of different kinds on this sofa. And you learn stuff out of necessity, don't you, pretty quickly? I imagine that must have happened for you.
Yeah, I mean, had a lot of help along the way. There was a little gap in between Margot being born and us kind of reaching out and getting some help. So I suppose in the meantime, I just did as much research as I could to find out what was the best course of action to take and how to raise a child who has no sight at all. But there's not that much info just out there readily available. So although I managed to find out a few things, it was people like Kate from Guide Dogs who kind of taught us almost everything we know.
It's a difficult time, isn't it? Where, something's happened, you don't know who to turn to, you didn't know anything before.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a shock for, even families who know that this might be not a possibility with their children, it's always a shock. But especially in Laura and John's case, where they had no idea, it's definitely, like Laura says, it's almost a bit of a grief, isn't it, of like what you had planned versus what's actually going to now be your reality.
I'm glad she's recognised the sofa. She's really comfy on the sofa.
Starting to get comfortable.
Yeah.
She likes the sofa.
I suppose as well, John and Nora, just as, Margot grows up, the great thing about the world today, at the times we live in, is that choices. There are choices, and we give a lot more autonomy to children to make those choices. There aren't these set rules that... She's blind, but there aren't set rules. There are opportunities for life to be just as good as, anyone who has sight. And that's something that you can work with Margot to get ahead with.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think we went through a stage of thinking that, Margot might not be able to do this, she might not be able to do that. But actually, we feel now that Margot will be able to do anything that Margot wants to do. If she wants to play football, she will be a lioness, If she wants to be an athlete, she will just be on the Paralympic team. And there is nothing that we will allow to get in her way, and we will just help her in every single way that we can.
Quiet little girl, isn't it?
When she starts to talk, which I think she already is, basically, that's going to be quite an occasion.
Yeah.
She's just singing Twinkle,
And I was
Twinkle.
going to say, Margot, anything you want? Is it?
Singing Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star.
Should we take that out?
Great. She might be back on the sofa in 20 years, kind of, you know, Brit Awards we're talking about this evening. You have no idea. It's been a joy to meet you all.
Thank
She's
you
been
so
a treat.
much.
So you were so worried that you might have to take her out. She's been an absolute star. So thank you so much. Laura, John, Margot, thank you, Kate, as well.
9:26. I think I'm going to get interrupted now when I'm trying to read it. There we go.
At last, someone can interrupt Charlie and not get told off. It's great.